All right. Welcome, everyone, to the UX South Bay first live stream event. And wow, we are on Meetup 26, which should have happened in March, but pandemics happened. And so today, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about the Meetup for our global audience who hasn't been with us yet. We typically meet on the Google Cloud campus in Sunnyvale, California. We've also met at Citrix, Intuit, and CA Technologies in the past. And we have a wide variety of speakers and an audience of about 150 to 200 people at each event. And we talk about a variety of UX topics, including sketch, including research, and today, design systems and getting traction in them. But as the slide says, you must be prepared for last minute changes, because last March, when we were just getting ready to have this meetup, suddenly we were told that we had to cancel it and that we would be staying home. We thought, oh, no big deal. We'll get this started back up in June. This will all be over by then. Little did we know, and that's how we switched to this live streaming format. So welcome. If this is your first time at the meetup, this is your meetup. We really mean that. Every single person involved in this meetup is a volunteer, and we would like people to suggest any changes or give us feedback about this event. This is our first time hosting a live stream. Some of us, including me, have never done this before. And we're also looking for speakers. We have speaker slots opening up in September through the rest of the year. And if you would like to volunteer, sponsor, please get in touch as well. Thank you so much to our awesome sponsors. We have Tech Systems, who typically provides food for all of our meetups. We have Sketch App, who provides a wonderful design program that a lot of us use and also sponsors us with a raffle and with the meetup tool. And Google, who usually provides the facilities that we meet in. And we do have a Slack channel. Please sign up. Note that the bit.ly link is case sensitive. So if you want to get up-to-the-minute updates on the meetup, if you would like to learn about jobs or get help with a design question, it's the right place to be. We also are looking for volunteers. We had the idea of making it more of a local community event, but now that it's opening up to the world, we're thinking about how can we spread the community far and wide and bring more resources to the web. And so if you're interested in that, please get in touch. And okay, finally, we are getting to the sketch raffle. Now, typically we have a box, which I should have brought with me, where we reach in and dramatically pull out names. Instead, I am just going to put a banner because I used, in slightly less dramatic fashion, a JavaScript randomizer to pick the winners for tonight. So here are the winners. We have Nestle, Natalie, Sid, and Avril. I will get in touch with you via meetup.com, and I will give you instructions on how to claim your license. And if you would like to participate in the raffle in the future, do sign up for these events on meetup.com because we're using that list to pick the winners. And now I'm going to bring in Megan here for our Who's Hiring section.
Thanks, Aaron. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan. A quick introduction to myself. I'm with Tech Systems Digital. We're a design agency here in the Bay, but we also help place great designers with top design teams in the area. So if you are interested in being connected with one of our specialized product design recruiters, please fill out the Google form. It's located in the banner ad right there, so we can reach out to you. I'll also have the link posted in our Slack channel under the recruiting section, so make sure to check that out. And for who's hiring, first things first, we do have a number of openings with several of our clients here in the Bay Area for things like product designers, design systems designers, motion designers, illustrators. So if you are looking for a new role, please make sure to fill out that form so we can get connected with you. And if you yourself are hiring or your team's looking for someone, please post in the chat your company name, where you're located, your website, what roles you're looking for, and how to get in touch.
And we will post those up in the chat if they come in. We'll just give it a couple of seconds here. And if no one's hiring right now, we can also, we have the opportunity to put those up in our Slack channel as well later on. But do throw them in the chat feed, and that'll give people access to your roles. Thank you very much. Okay, and now I'm going to bring up Kelly to talk about design at Google.
Hello, thank you, Aaron. My name is Kelly, and I work here at Google. I am part of the UX sourcing team. We're a team about 30 deep, and we work on IC roles or individual contributor roles for across North America. And those roles range from designer to researcher to UX writer to UX engineers, which sit at the intersection of design and engineering. And ecstatic to be with you. I've had the opportunity to join live, and so feel very honored to be part of the first live stream. And so I believe there is a form that I'd love to share with you all if you're interested in learning about future opportunities or how to navigate Google's interview process. We have routinely host what we call virtual classroom, and it's an opportunity for you to understand what you can expect in an interview, how you can prepare for an interview, and anything that would be sort of top of mind, from what should your portfolio look like to sort of what kinds of things you can expect throughout the interview process. And so if that is of interest to you, please go ahead and fill out that form. And if interested in full-time Google opportunities, please check out our website at the Google Careers page. So again, thanks for having me, and excited to be here.
Thank you so much for joining, Kelly. All right. Oh, I went backwards, dang it. Okay, next month, Tarzine Jackson, who is a regular attendee of the meetup, and I think she's on the live stream because I saw her shout out later or earlier in the chat. She is going to be speaking on thoughtful design thinking. I think this is a fascinating topic. We went over it the other day about the implications of some of the design decisions that you make and how they affect other people. And so please join us next month on August 11th at 5:30 Pacific for that talk. And finally, I want to bring Shane Kibble into the live stream here to talk about how to get traction for your design system. Thank you for joining us, Shane.
Awesome. I'm glad to be here. And yeah, so for everyone who either is responsible for a design system or associated with the design system at all, or just curious about how design systems work and wondering that sort of black box around how to right. Let me start by saying thank you for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're here, and also very exciting as we reignite the South Bay UX Meetup. Woo woo. My name is Shane Kibble, as Aaron mentioned, and I'm excited to share with you around this topic of getting traction for your design system. Just a quick background, I've been doing UX design for about 15 years in the Bay Area, and have consulted for just about every size company. So hopefully, as I have been putting this together, I've been thinking about no matter where you're at and what size of company, these points that we're going to cover today will be applicable to you. I'd like to start by just quickly giving a big thanks to Aaron Segre for hosting tonight's event. He's actually been amazing. He gave me an opportunity to work with him at Google for one of their design systems. And I wanted to give him a big shout out and thanks for being the kind of manager you're lucky to have even once in your career. So thank you, Aaron. Would also like to thank Megan Rogers and Shep Stafford for Tech Systems for helping to connect me with some of the best companies in the Bay Area. If you're currently looking for a job or need to fill a position, highly recommend you reach out to Megan, as she mentioned earlier. Also would like to thank two people that I've walked with over the years. in my career around design systems. One's Michael Wellman, sorry. He gave me the opportunity to work with him on the design system for Realtor.com to the point where it became a reusable model for all of News Corp. And lastly, James Carlton for sharing his experiences while he's currently leading the design system for PayPal. And he's been leading it through all its growing pains. All right, well, let's begin tonight's discussion. So to begin with, you may be wondering, how do you get your design system off the ground? So again, there's kind of like a journey, if you will, of design systems. It starts off with somebody who's usually passionate about the system, and then we'll talk about that journey here. And then eventually it gets off the ground. There's a lot of traction. Then you want to monitor it. So we're going to cover all these phases in between. So if you're currently at the grassroots bottom-up stage of trying to get your design system up and running at your company, I'm going to give you a few tips that you can explore. First of all, instead of waiting for it to become an official priority, you can actually work by building momentum while working with your peers, designing and building a sticker sheet, or a tool, which is a toolkit of components. You can start with finding an ambassador to share your passion for having a design system, another designer, developer, etc. And you can share your mission of creating a design system during your organization's all-hand meeting, and even ask or beg for help to build out your company's first design system. Make sure when you're trying to get adoption and traction for your system that you talk about the ROI of having a design systems. One of the key things is so that you speak the language of those people that are going to support it financially, is you want to remind them or inform them that high quality, consistent experience across your products, research has shown that this builds trust, and that ultimately leads to higher conversion rates. So having a library of reusable components also saves a lot of time. And as you know, time equals money, and it frees up product teams to focus more on other products, more innovative products and new features. So as you think about the curve and the growth and the journey, before long, you're going to find engineers are going to get word of your scrappy team and what they're doing. And then they're going to start coming to you and start requesting components. And that's a good problem to have. That's a sign that you're heading the right direction. And next thing you want to do is create a playbook or something others can begin using right away. This is a great way for your design system to go viral. What I mean by playbook is you can have independent PDFs, Figma files, etc., that you can share out. Things that different types of playbooks you might consider, like your grid system, your padding grid system. That's sort of the foundation of the actual components, and making sure that it's built properly. You can cover standardization of creating components. Another playbook would be accessibility. There's a ton you can go deep on accessibility. Even think about content writing for components in your design system. So all of these, they're like, think of them as useful tips for other designers, product owners, engineers. Before long, you're going to find your task from creating components and stake and their expectations. And this is when you begin to push to make a design system a high priority for your company. So as you can kind of anticipate, in order for a design system to be successful, it has to become a priority for your company. And that means there needs to be a buy-in at the senior management level. And at that point, resources need to be allocated towards staffing a dedicated team to create, maintain, socialize, even to justify your design system's existence. Just a quick story. A lead designer I know was not experiencing success until the design system became a priority from the business unit. So he was doing bottom up until there was a tipping point where it became top down. And before long, product owners wouldn't even review design work until it had first been reviewed by the design system team. So that's sort of the ultimate where you want to be in terms of getting traction for your design system. Is you don't have to push your way into attending all the design reviews. It's more of a pull where design where managers and product owners are directing designers back to your workflow, your governance model, things like that, so that their products that they're shipping have actually incorporated your design system. It's really important to understand that, and I think most of you on this attending this meeting right now probably are aware of this. Design systems are organic. They change and they grow over time. This is something that I kind of took for granted, but as I've managed and directed teams, it's a kind of message you have to constantly remind folks that it's not a one-time created, once and done. You're done, you move on. So it's important not to assume that everyone has the same point of view, that it's going to require dedicated resources. Otherwise, it's going to eventually become unusable and obsolete. The user experience is going to revert back to being inconsistent. Time, money, and resources spent getting the design system up and running will have been wasted. To prevent this, product teams need to continually be updating and creating new experiences using your design system components. A robust design system is built with layers, and each layer supports the layer above it. Selecting the right, so the first layer is design and develop component library. As we mentioned, go back one slide, you're going to need a robust team as well. And let me move on from there. The team we'll cover in a little bit here, in another part of this presentation. But the first thing you want to do is set up your component libraries, and to do that, you want to select the right tool for your organization, or you want to champion for the right tool of your organization. As you know, the current leading tools are Slack and Figma. And both of them have their strengths and weaknesses. I won't go into them in great detail, but you want to kind of be mindful that it depends on your organization's need for real-time collaboration. Do you want to use one tool for designing and prototyping, or do you want to use multiple tools? There needs to be one source of truth for your components. It needs to be a master file. Components need to be built using atomic design methodology. As you know, that's atoms, molecules. You combine those into larger components, and then eventually pages. Developers need to be incentivized to contribute back to the design system components libraries. So it doesn't just start and end with your Figma files. It's got to include the development pattern libraries as well. And a big part of that is for the developers to, as they're using the components and building them out, they've got to then contribute back to the development libraries as well. The next piece, foundation element, is pattern documentation. And patterns for components should be captured using a content management system. There's a number of systems out there. Craft is a plugin for Sketch. You may be aware of. They have a design system manager, but there's a number of other like third-party content management systems that will work well with the tools you're using. At Google, for example, they create their own custom content management system. So you may even create one within your company. May have the capability of creating their own. This should be accessible by anyone in the organization. So you want to make sure that it's something you can access via browser. And when it's done right, it's going to save the design system team a lot of time from answering the same questions over and over again. And I've just included a short list of all the content that you would have in your pattern documentation. And this is just a short list, but that list will actually is larger than that. But that's some of the core things you want to make sure you include. And there's quite a bit to cover just in workflow and governance. But at a high level, you want to make sure you're vetting your workflow and governance as you start building it out. You want to make sure that you're connecting with other design leads in your team, in your organization. Make sure that you're aligning with their sprints. Ensure that instead of you having to attend every single design session to look to see if patterns are used properly. One great tip that I was given from an industry leader was to create your own calendar with opportunities for people to sign up for time slots for you to review their work. Again, this is more of a pull than a push experience, and it's geared towards allowing you to be a much more efficient with your time. That'll allow you to focus not just on always reviewing designs, but building out your robust design system and including patterns such as anti-patterns and your animation patterns, things like that. One thing I may have mentioned earlier is sticker sheet. A sticker sheet is basically the components library itself. It's housed within your tool that you're using, whether Sketch or Figma, and it essentially is the master components. And what you want to make sure is that designers are not able to access that. That's something you want to preserve just for your design system designers to access. So that way you can control high amount of quality and consistency. Socialization. In order to socialize your design system, you need to come up with a communication strategy. The strategy should begin with being able to answer the 6 W's. What is the design system? Why should I care? How do I use it? When should I use it? Who is maintaining it? Where can I get access to it? Where can I get, where can I get access to it? It should anticipate stakeholder needs and their resistance. Sometimes the strongest resistance will actually come from the primary stakeholder responsible for using the design system, and that's the designers themselves. Some of the concerns I've come across are it's going to slow me down. It will limit my creativity. It will eliminate my job. All of these are very, I understand where a lot of designers are coming from when they have these points of view. But the reality is, the opposite's true. It won't slow you down. It will free you up to focus on innovating rather than recreating the same component over and over again. It won't limit your creativity. It will actually free you up to focus on the innovative new patterns that don't even exist yet. Will it eliminate your job? Don't think it'll eliminate your job because as designers, especially UX designers, our goal is not to focus on page creation as much as user experiences. So you can let the design system manage and focus on all of the components and pieces that you need to be innovative and create those experiences. And there's been no design system that I've worked on that once you fit your initial set will be our components that don't change over time, components that are reusable. Just when you think you're done, then there's more components to create because new experiences are being created all the time. Your communication strategy should also include a content management system, as we mentioned, to document those questions. And the pattern library should include context and rules, anti-patterns, incorrect uses of components, animation if applicable. It may even contain the code for developers to copy and paste. That's something that we're currently doing at my company right now. It should include updates and releases, version history, workflows, and governance models. And as I mentioned before, it should be accessible by anyone in the organization. I also like to include FAQs. This will save the design team, again, a lot of time from needing to answer the same question over again. And as you're building out your FAQ, you'll find that you're actually missing quite a bit of the documentation that's important to communicate how to use the system itself. Let's move on. Let me just pause for a second and see if there's any questions that might have come up that I need to give clarity on. Okay, great. As I mentioned before, there needs to be a dedicated design system team. That is the foundation. Without a dedicated team, it's really not going to get the support it needs to go beyond just a single designer and developer. To really get support, you need to include a product manager, because at the end of the day, a lot of times product managers are responsible for the roadmap. So if you're not getting alignment and support from a product manager, chances are this won't have the impact you want, because you won't be seen as solving the problems of being able to create those products that are on the roadmap. So if you have a product manager, a lot of times they will champion for the existence of the design system. And over time, as your design system team grows, it'll be very helpful to incorporate additional disciplines as well, such as project managers, QA, user research, content writing, and data analysts. Now, these members of your team don't have to be dedicated or permanent. Something you can definitely borrow as a shared resource, because a lot of times they're not needed all the time. So therefore, their sort of allocation to the project can be minimal, and if you communicate that, you're more likely to get the sort of resources that you need to do it right. So high level, design system is the product, and product teams are your customers. This is actually one of the key themes I've needed to socialize, both externally and internally within my design system team. With that kind of mindset, it opens up for your team to be a little more passionate about what they're creating, to think about, like, give you a quick example. Our workflow has, I think, 22 steps. And even though the steps themselves, a lot of times are minimal, it still seems like it could be a little bit overwhelming when you think of the sheer number. So having create a lot of transactional flows, one of the things I'm working on is creating a wizard that helps designers and developers understand where they're at within the workflow, and they can. It's kind of like choose your own adventure. So if you've completed certain things and passed certain gates, then you move on, and then it'll give you a short list of what you need for the next step. So when you think of the design system as a product, then you start thinking of creative ways for other designers and developers to use your product in a really engaging way. I've also been excited to witness aha moments when it really clicks in for members of the design system team that what they're working on is the product. A transformation begins to happen when someone starts to understand that they play a critical role in the company's success. They're no longer building a single product. They're now having a much bigger impact on the products that are created. They're building components and tools needed for every product that the companies can be building. So it's just a much wider reach. And that's one of the things I think for me personally, I'm most proud of or excited when working on a design system design. One second, I'm going to take a quick water break. Understanding the needs and anticipate resistance. So what we're going to talk about in the next few slides is some of the tools that exist or sort of modified to really get ahead of the adoption and traction, to get to sort of like plant seeds to to use sort of jujitsu. It's like using somebody's energy and momentum to your advantage. So in order to get support for design system, you're going to need to understand your stakeholders' needs and anticipate any resistance. And one of my favorite methodologies for achieving this is the value proposition design by Strategizer. In addition to understanding the jobs, pains, and gains from each stakeholder, you start to begin to learn how to speak their language. These are both very pivotal in socializing your design system. When you start being able to speak the same language as your stakeholders, they start feeling a sense of trust, and a relationship begins to bond and build. And it also shows that you've taken enough interest and time to understand where they're coming from. You don't always have to agree, but to be able to use the same vernacular and understand really where they're coming from goes a long way in either finding middle ground or getting them to kind of see, for them to first open up and listen to what you have to say about the need for the company to have a design system. And then not only just to have the system, but to start adopting it. So in getting to that point where you're speaking their language, a lot of times you have to understand who the stakeholders are. What type of stakeholder are they? So there's another tool I found useful in value proposition design, is called customer profiles. I've used this to help analyze internal customer stakeholders, and I've modified it a little bit. In some cases, I've used this to analyze both stakeholders that are using the system and even stakeholders that are part of the design system team. So let me go through what the definition is. So an influencer is an individual or group whose opinion might count and whom the decision maker might listen to, even in an informal way. Recommenders are people who may not use the design system, yet they make a formal recommendation for or against having a design system. A buyer is the individual group who controls the budget, right? They control the purse strings, and they make the actual purchase of the tools and resourcing to grow your design system team. Their concerns are typically focused on performance and efficiency. So knowing how to speak their language, understanding where they're coming from, understanding how to give them that kind of information is really helpful in getting that person to provide you the financial support you need. Then there's the decision makers. This person or group is ultimately responsible for the choice of the design system tools, the resourcing for making it a formal design system team and process. And the decision makers usually have ultimate authority over the budget. So while the buyer makes the purchase, the decision maker gives them the authorization to actually release the funds. So like I said, there's a lot of kind of analyzing who you're working with to navigate the challenging organizational structures that happen at any level, any size company. Then you have the end users, and ultimately they're the beneficiaries of the design system. These are the product teams using the design system. They may be passive or active, depending on how much say they have within their organization. Experiences that I quickly, when I join a company, try to get a lay of the land to find out who are folks that have, who are influencers, etc. Even on the design level, like individual contributor level, because if you can speak their language, if you can share with them the value of the design system, they're going, if they have those aha moments where they see the benefits of the design system, they're the ones that are ultimately going to start using it and persuade others to use it. One example that I thought was really impressive when I was working at Realtor.com is my manager at the time, Sammy Weller, suggested for the design system, hey, we've got these high fidelity components, but when you look at our design process, we spend a lot of time in low fidelity and to make final decisions. And then we spend a short amount of time doing the high fidelity. So we're spending a lot of time creating components that are high fidelity, what can we do to create low fidelity components? So I and several others worked with Sammy to create a whole visual language for low fidelity components. And we were using Sketch at the time, and Sketch allows you to have both the high fidelity and low fidelity in one nested symbol. And it was amazing to be able to just toggle between the two. So you could have an entire page that would be low fidelity, but you might want to call out that one area you're redesigning with the high fidelity, and you can toggle them off quickly. When we started showing that, communicating how how easy it was to do that, and how it was actually going to help designers who were doing a number of different things when doing low fidelity, whether it's sketching, whiteboard, stickies, that's all fine, that's all great. But there is a point where you have to kind of get a little tighter on your designs so that you know that when you start putting it into the grid, it's going to work. And so being able to go from Sketch to these low fidelity components and then high fidelity components without having to redo your entire page was like a huge groundbreaking aha moment for like all the designers. And so then it was like a moment of we've got complete buy-in, and it was exciting. Let's talk about what happens when we run up against the last profile here, and that's the saboteurs. These are stakeholders who can obstruct or derail the process at any given point. I found it very helpful to anticipate their arguments, to plant a lot of reinforcing positive seeds, and get their buy-in early and often. And as this idea of anticipating their arguments. Well, in order to anticipate their arguments, you have to understand where they're coming from, and it goes back to really having an empathetic view of your stakeholders and get to know them, get to understand their point of view. And then, like I said, through jiu-jitsu, you kind of use that momentum in your favor. And then in terms of planting seeds, it's easy, actually. You just simply talk about the benefits of the design system, how it's going to make their life easier, and then how it will also achieve some of their goals, right? And then on that note of, getting buy-in and whatnot, as the saying goes, it's easier to attract bees with honey than with vinegar. Now, if this doesn't work, then the next option, you have a couple more options. One is to basically just go around them. If you're running into these, if it's becoming a blocker for you to continue moving forward with your design system, sometimes you have to either go around them or understand who they report to, get their buy-in, and then by relationship, they'll end up supporting your efforts for the design system. The next piece of your journey is to formalize your system. You want to choose a tool, as we mentioned, that allows for a master sticker sheet, which is sticker sheet, again, is just a list of components. It's the components you're building. Think of it as just one page, though. It's a master page of all your components. In addition to your components, you'll have libraries and you'll have releases. And you want a tool that can manage all of that. You want to make sure that the design system team, particularly the design system designer, has they're the only ones with access to your master file. For the now that's the same entire, like Figma is a good example where other designers are going to create their own files in Figma, and you can access it quickly and easily through the web. But in terms of them accessing the master file, you want to make sure that your team is the only team that has access to that. Because what will happen is if other designers, engineers, etc., get in there, then you lose the integrity of the system. You get sort of right back where you started, which was inconsistency, things not being built properly, things getting broken, right? So you think about all the hard work you put in your design system. Now all of a sudden it reverts back to the very problems you started with. So the one thing I want to stress is make sure that you when you have your team built out, that you make the master component file accessible just to your design system team. And then, as you may be aware, even though it's locked, that doesn't mean designers aren't using the components. Obviously, they're going to be using the component library, which is the sort of the foundation of using these tools, right? Is you create your component, you upload it to, as a library, and then they can download it, through that same library. On that note of libraries, you want to make sure that you're publishing your components library, the releases on a regular cadence. That way designers can anticipate when they're going to get new components. There's a whole philosophy about how often you want to have your releases. If you do it too soon, too often rather, it can be a little overwhelming. If you don't do it soon enough, then there could be potential rework from designers. But whatever you decide to do, just make sure you communicate it well. Inform them when you're doing the releases and what has been released, the changes and updates to both design and development components. So once you get traction on your design system and up and running at high speed, you're going to be set up for some success. And that's when you want to start measuring your success. So you want to set up success metrics. And there are a lot of ways to do that. Some of the things that you're going to want to start tracking is adoption. So for example, the number of pages and screens that are converted using the design system, number of components currently in production. One of the things we're looking into at my current company is how can we even track the improved velocity? Like how are we getting faster at actually utilizing the components? These are just a small number of different metrics. There are a number of other metrics that I'm actually discovering all the time. But what's important here is when you start tracking the metrics, you can then communicate back up to leadership team the return on their investment. Right, because they've spent a lot of money on resources, both products and dedicated designers, developers, product managers, etc. And they're probably responsible to forecast and communicate the impact that your design system is having in the company. And it is having a big impact in the company. When I was at Realtor, we went a whole quarter. And one of the most important successes that we were able to communicate is we got the design system up and running. And at the time, I didn't really appreciate how that made impact. It wasn't until later that I realized what we were able to communicate upwards is, to leadership and management, others, is we've just set in place a way to streamline speed, to save in terms of, or enhance the experience for consistency. And we're able to have our designers and developers and product owners, etc., focus on the next experiences. They don't have to waste any more time redesigning the same components. They can focus on what's there, leveraging what's there, and really focusing on the new experiences. Well, I just wanted to say thank you for, again, the time to us. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation, and I would love to pause now and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Shane. I'm going to bring a question onto the screen from Spencer.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
And he asks, any thoughts on how smaller teams can create effective design systems, areas of greatest ROI? He's in a company of 35 people with 3 designers.
That's a good question. And as we were talking about the sort of journey of a design system, it starts with a very small team. And the quickest sort of ROI that you can have is taking what's currently in production and coming up with a design language. So the core of a design system is, as we talked about, the grid spacing and that sort of thing. You can document what's there, and a lot of times there won't be consistent spacing. There won't be consistent anything. So when in doubt, you get to then start formalizing what your radiuses are on your buttons, what the font itself is a bigger conversation if you want to change font, but have consistencies in font. You can start looking at what is the accessibility and the contrast ratio for your fonts. Is it ADA compliant? If not, that's a great opportunity for you to start documenting, what your colors are for your buttons and links and everything else to ensure you have ADA compliance built in. But in terms of ROI, the key is to start with a sticker sheet. If you don't have the whole library set up where you have a lockdown master file uploaded to the library, other designers are accessing your components through the library dropdown, then what I recommend is at least create a very tight, well-organized, pixel-perfect sticker sheet that other designers and developers can refer to. And the ROI there is you're going to start seeing traction on people having that designs that'll start following will have some consistent design language built in. And before long, a developer or developers are going to say, hey, I've got 3 different designers sharing with me these, this new radius that we've got. I'd like to know, is that official? And then you just start having conversation. Yeah, it's official. We saw inconsistencies. Sometimes it's two pixel radius, sometimes 4. We decided to stick with 4. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Katie brings up, what do you think about an organization that does not want a design system? She is part of an agency that has 10 main people with 2 designers.
That's interesting. I'll share with you a couple things. One, when I attended InVision's workshop on design systems, I looked around the room and was chatting with people at my table and others, and it was just amazing to me how many designers were in the room feeling like sometimes they're the only designer companies that they were the sole person championing for a design system. And so the question you're asking, what do you do if there's not a desire for a design system? I would use some of the things that we've talked about today, which is talk about the benefits of the designs of what a design system can provide. The things that we've talked about already, like it's going to be an easy sell when you explain that, hey, and start thinking about not just the ROI, what's the cost of not having, like you can flip it around. Again, that's sort of jujitsu. It's like, how do you flip it around and say, hey, can we afford not to have a design system? And maybe it's not a case of building out a full team, when you're only 2 people, but someone has to start with having the passion for it, as I mentioned earlier. And if you're that person, then you will eventually start getting more traction. You'll get alignment with if there's only 2 designers, come up. Like I would set up time to meet with the other designer and talk about the patterns they're working on, what you're working on, have a consistency with the 2 of you. And then, that's sort of the foundation. And then you can build upon that. In terms of not wanting a design system, I think, again, it comes down to understanding their language points, their pain point, the cost, time, effort. I've been there. I've had a fight for, hey, it is going to take a little time for us to take this language and propagate across all our products. But the upside is, our conversion rates are going to go up. We're going to look all professional and all grown up. So anyway, I hope that helps.
Margaret asks, can you talk more about the choice of metrics? What kind of things do design system teams track to show internal impact?
Yeah, that's great. So sometimes that's sort of the language that stakeholders and management, upper management, that's the language they're going to be using, and you need to understand that language. So the metrics can be, it can start out really simple. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll just create a spreadsheet and I'll document all the components that we have to date that have been created. Then I will identify the components that have been built within that spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet will have number of components created, design, number built, number pending to be designed, pending to be built. So you can start with, you can start getting some statistics that way, or numbers, percentages, etc. Like, hey, we're 20% complete. So then maybe 2 weeks later, hey, we've done 10 more components, and so and you can start using, you can use percentages, the language that they're used to. It's like we've made 15% increase total number of components created. So that's one. As I mentioned, a little bit of some of the metrics would be around time to market, like how quickly are other teams using your components? How are they, like what percentage of the overall site still needs to be updated in terms of the new language? And I'm going to quickly just share with you a pain point we have right now, which is, and a lot of companies have, which is you're migrating to a new visual. You've established a visual language, but you're migrating over that new visual language. How do you tackle that? Do you focus on a core piece of the product and then slowly do the others? One of the things you may consider is, you have your design system, you have your visual language. You could start with the current CSS on the site and just work, carve out time to upgrade the language. Then what's nice is you can do a transition from, we've got the page looking the way it should. Now we can actually import we can start pulling in some of the actual components. So you can do it in phases in terms of how you roll out your design system. So that becomes part of the ROI too. It's like, hey, we've got 100% rollout of visual language across all the site. All of our buttons now look the same and that sort of thing. When I was at one company, I championed with the senior executives that if they gave us more time, I was asking for, I think, 3 more months. What they would get in return from that was a new visual language across every single touch point. So what I did is I worked with all the designers, had them send me the work, the very projects files they're working on. I took the language that I worked with a few designers to establish and vetted, and even got user research testing on, took that and within 2 days converted all those files to the new language, presented in front of executives. And when they looked at that, they said, not only will we give you 3 months to make this consistent across all of our touch points, but we want, right after this meeting, you to talk with our head of marketing, and we want to stop all the spending we have right now on an agency, because we like your design system and language better than what we're paying for. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. We have a few questions building up here. Kayla is asking, what techniques or tools have you seen work on some design systems that fail on other systems? Good question. I don't know if I have an answer specifically for that, but I'll just try to provide a little bit of insight. One of the pieces of the equation when creating a design system is your content management system. And when I was at Realtor and we were building out ours, Michael Waldman was the creative director at the time. He was actually informally interviewing other companies, a lot of times just colleagues that he worked with in the past, to find out what their solution was, because we found working with Sketch and Craft design system that the content management system they had only had like two levels. We couldn't get a third level in there, and it was actually a pretty big deal for us, because we spent a lot of time creating a content strategy for our design system, and we felt that we were hindered. So we actually worked with Craft quite a bit to provide that input, and I understand that they've actually made a lot of great progress on creating a more robust content management system. So I know I'm not answering your question directly, but that's just one of the things that comes to my mind. I'm going to pause for a second, see if there's if I can think of anything else in terms of systems. I would say your governance.
again, don't have a great answer here, but I'm going to just give you some more, hopefully some insight. The governance and workflow models that you create, you know, as a design system team, you need to create those and say, this is the ideal state. And then there's two states. There's if we are up and running 100% and we're spending a lot of our time creating our own new components that we're identifying, here's a workflow. If we are going to incorporate or do sort of a hybrid model where we work with other teams to get the components built, designed and built, that would be a different workflow. Currently, at where I'm at my current company, we are wanting, well, actually, we ended up having a ton of components already designed by Frog. And we want to take that and convert that into development. But there's well over 450 times 2 or 3, depending on the actual screen, whether it's iOS, Android, you know, web. And so what we've come up with is a hybrid model. And this is something that Frog proposed. And I was able to refine a little bit to really suit our team and needs. But it's one way to get traction is to have other teams build out your components. And then the big question remains, though, who's responsible for what? So you have to come up with your RACI model for that. And it's a lot of work, but in the end, you'll be able to get that ROI quicker if you can incorporate help from other teams. Meanwhile, the design system team should still be building components.
Thank you. Michael asks, what is the best way to introduce a design system in a mature product that has never had a design system before, like a mid-product introduction?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's common, right? So I'm just thinking back to Realtor.com again. We started with the language, and because there's no silver bullet here, because no matter how you look at it, any website, when you look at the first level, second level, once you get to third, fourth level, a lot of times those pages haven't been touched for eons. So what we decided to do was and this is a strategy I recommend, start with wherever you're at, lock down the visual language, then require the designers using the language to begin. Any new design has to reflect the language. Now the components, they're going to follow, but as long as you have the language, your colors, your fonts, your sizes, all that, then you can start slowly introducing the components. But that's how you're going to ever get out in front of it, is to require design system team or the teams that are using design system to begin using the language. Another thing you can do is when it comes to the using the components, like you can choose a page within your site, maybe it's the about page or some other page that doesn't get a lot of traction. Start using the developed components and put those on and incorporate those in the page. That way you can track and see if there's any, you can work out the bugs and kinks. Sometimes when you mix that old technology with the new technology. So that's one of the strategies we're doing at my current company. A really solid idea. I'm trying to think, there was another piece of this. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like jumping in. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid. You just have to do it fast. There's no slow way to do this. But you need to get support, and from a lot of the conversation we had earlier today. If you have buy-in, it's going to make this process a lot less painful.
I think this is going to be the last question for our evening. This is from Natalie. She asks, "What have you ever witnessed a failing design system? What was your biggest takeaway from that? And what would you have done differently at that time?"
So I wouldn't say that I've had I haven't experienced a failing design system. What I've experienced is some of the processes of the system needed a lot of hammering out. And one of the big ones was trying to figure out what's the best time to have design reviews where design system designers are included in those reviews. And so at Realtor, for example, I'd be in a meeting and it was not clear, which hat I was wearing. Am I providing feedback as a principal designer? Am I providing feedback as, somebody who's, building out the design system team. And I felt badly actually for the designers because it wasn't clear what kind of feedback that they were getting as well. And so the key to that was we separate the review so that a designer knew very clearly when they're presenting what kind of feedback they're going to get. The other piece of this is, this is something that was recommended by James Carlton, is to set up a calendar or drop in office hours. So that way you're not having to chase down every single design meeting, every design review. Let them come to you. Let them come to you and review. And then you can it frees you up to spend a lot more time creating other patterns and components that you'd like to, need to, like good one is animation. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Shane. I want to bring Wendy and Megan into the stream here and thank them as co-hosts that worked behind the scenes to help make this happen. Wendy was the voice of the South Bay UX Meetup in the chat tonight. Megan helped in a lot of great detail with planning of this event. And I also want to thank Shane for just providing a wealth of knowledge to us and for dedicating time out of onboarding to a brand new role at Rakuten. Thank you very much, Shane. And for those of you who are interested in attending our next meetup, please join us on August 11th at 5:30 p.m. Tarzine is going to speak on thoughtful design thinking. If you go to meetup.com/SouthBayUX, you could sign up for that event. If you do sign up through the meetup, you will be entered to win sketch licenses. And this also helps us keep track of the attendance of the events and the interests of the events. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.